What if the answer you've been waiting for already came and it was no? Not yet. Not, I'm working on it. Just no. And the person who got that answer, the person we got it from, was Paul. And he didn't write it down as a loss. He wrote it down as the turn. The moment his whole understanding of power rearranged itself on the page. So I want to ask you something. What if your no is the answer? 2 Corinthians chapter 12, verses 9 and 10. Paul is in Macedonia, somewhere around the year 55 or 56, writing into a fight he is losing on paper. There are these other teachers who have shown up in Corinth, polished, credentialed, confident. Paul calls them super apostles with enough bite that you can hear the eye roll across 2,000 years. And the Corinthians, who Paul planted, are starting to drift because these other guys look the part. They have the visions, the eloquence, the presence. Paul, by his own admission, shows up and people go, "This is the guy? He's shorter than his letters." So he plays their game once, just to show he could. He tells them he was caught up into the third heaven 14 years ago. Mystical ascent, stuff he was not permitted to repeat. If he wanted to win on credentials, that's the card, and he plays it. Then he does something that, the first time you notice it, is a little wild. He immediately turns around and tells them about the thorn. "A thorn in the flesh was given to me." His words. He doesn't tell us what it is. Physical, relational, a recurring humiliation. The Greek stays deliberately open. Scallops, a splinter, a stake, something that hurts and won't come out. And then verse 8. 3 times I pleaded with the Lord to take it away from me. 3 times. Stay with me on that number, because this is the move that rereads the whole passage. Every Corinthian reading this letter out loud knew another story where somebody prayed 3 times for something hard to pass. 3 times is the Gethsemane signature. In Matthew 26 and Mark 14, Jesus goes into the garden and prays 3 separate times that the cup pass from him. 3. And each time, the cup stays. Paul is not name-checking Gethsemane. He is doing something quieter and sharper. He's laying his refused prayer on top of Jesus's refused prayer and asking the reader to feel the overlap. Because the Father, who had every power to lift the cup, said no in the garden. And Paul prayed 3 times in the same shape for the same kind of thing, suffering attached to calling. And God said no again. The no in the garden and the no to Paul are from the same hand, doing the same work. That changes what refused prayer means in the life of someone following Jesus. It stops being a sign something went wrong. It starts being a sign something is going right in a way that costs. Because the cup didn't pass for a reason. The cup was the mechanism. And if you transfer that forward to Paul, the thorn doesn't leave for a reason. The thorn is the mechanism. God's answer, word for word, "My grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness." Now, here's where the Greek does something English really can't. The verb is sufficient, arche. It's present tense, right now, ongoing. Paul had a perfectly good future tense option in Greek, archese, which would have meant will be sufficient, a promise that grace kicks in later when the thorn finally lifts. He didn't use it. He used the present. Grace is sufficient right now, in the unfixed thing. And the other verb, is made perfect, Teleitai, is present passive, which means Christ is the one doing it. Weakness is the medium it moves through, and Paul is neither. Paul is not the project. Paul's character growth is not the point. His weakness is not a spiritual technique. Christ's power, operating through a condition Paul cannot fix, is bringing itself to full expression. You can't turn that verse into a self-improvement slogan. The Greek won't let you. The grammar locks the exit. So, for a second, let me walk sideways from the text. The word for is made perfect, Teleitai, comes from telos, goal, end, completion. Same root family as the word Jesus says on the cross, tetelestai. It is finished. Not a death rattle, a completion. The work done, brought all the way through. And that same family of meaning is what gets applied to Paul's thorn. The thorn is a place where something is being brought all the way through. Not ended, completed, which is a very different word than endured. Okay, back. So the text is doing something specific to Paul and specific to Corinth. It's breaking the frame the Corinthians are using to tell who's a real apostle and who isn't. The super apostles look impressive. Paul doesn't. Under their frame, Paul loses. Under Paul's frame, the one he's building in real time on the page, the unfixable thing in his life is the evidence, not the embarrassment. But I want to stay with the Gethsemane piece, because that's the line that cuts for me. A friend of mine lost her mom last fall, and sometime in March I ran into her husband at the grocery store, in the cereal aisle, of all places, and he said something I haven't stopped turning over. He said, she keeps asking God to take the grief, and it won't go. And she started to wonder if that means she's doing something wrong. I didn't have anything to say in the moment. But what I wanted to say, what I've been trying to figure out how to say since, is this passage. Because what Paul is doing here, in a real way, is giving permission for the prayer to be refused, without that refusal meaning the petitioner got it wrong. The refused prayer is not a low faith prayer. It is the prayer Jesus himself prayed. And his was refused too. The no in your life, the one you keep circling back to, year after year, asking for the thing to finally lift, is not proof you're not being heard. It's possibly proof that you're standing somewhere in the pattern where Jesus already stood. Garden, 3 times. The cup doesn't pass. Here's the piece that's hardest. Let me try it. There is a chair in the corner of a room somewhere. Maybe it's a recliner the hospice nurse brought in, and nobody's moved it yet, because moving it would mean it's actually over. Maybe it's an office chair that belonged to somebody who isn't in the office anymore. Maybe it's a kitchen chair at a table where one person has stopped coming and the seat is still there. And you still set 4 plates sometimes out of habit and then set one back. That chair is a thorn. It's the specific, unfixable thing. And if you're being honest, you've been praying, maybe for a year, maybe for 10, some version of, please, take this. Let me walk into that room and not see it. Let this stop hurting this much. What Paul is saying, from the other side of his own 3 refused prayers, is that the place the chair sits is where Christ's power is currently being made perfect in you. Not later, not after you heal. Right there, in the present tense, in the room you still can't sit in for long. That's not a comfort. That's a reorientation. Comfort would be, someday you'll be okay. Reorientation is Christ is doing something now in the specific condition you have been asking to be rescued from. That's a harder thing to hold, but it's the thing Paul held. Let me try it a second way, because I don't want this to stay abstract.
You sent the email. You remember the draft. You sat at the desk, the blinds were half down and the screen was too bright, and you wrote the thing you had been working up to for months. Maybe it was to a parent. Maybe it was to a boss. Maybe it was to somebody in the family who had been sideways with you for years, and you finally said the real thing. You pressed send. And whatever you were hoping would happen didn't happen. The response was silence, or worse, or just a polite non-response that told you the thing you were afraid of, which was that the person on the other end wasn't going to meet you where you finally reached out from. And you prayed, maybe without words, that this wouldn't be the answer, that there would be a follow-up text, a phone call, a door reopening, and there wasn't. 3 times you circled back, in different moods, asking for the same thing, and it stayed shut. The Paul read on that is not, eventually they'll come around. The Paul read is, in the closed door, right now, Christ's power is being brought to completion in you, in a way it would not have been brought to completion if the door had opened. Which is not fair, and Paul would not argue that it's fair. Paul would say, grace is sufficient, present tense, in the exact shape of the thing that didn't open. And that's the thing the text refuses to soften. It would be easy to land this at, so eventually Paul made peace with his thorn. That's not what the text says. Paul never makes peace with it. He inverts the whole valuation. He doesn't move from, this hurts, to, I've accepted this. He moves from, take this away, to, I will boast in this. Those are not the same destination. The first is resignation dressed up. The second is a genuine reorganization of what counts as power. And I don't want to pretend I've arrived at the second one. Most days, on most of the unfixable things in my own life, I'm still somewhere around prayer number 2. Asking, circling, hoping the no might turn into a yes. But Paul is on the other side of it. And what he's saying from over there is the no isn't the obstacle between you and the answer. The no is the answer. And the answer is that the place you cannot fix is the place Christ is currently at work. So back to the question we started with. What if your no is the answer? It might already be yes.